But then, this is the one thing that I never expected was the fact that at the Xbox showcase, I believe 4 or 5, 6, 7 a week ago, something like that, earlier this week, whatever, whenever it was, they revealed Yakuza 8, and I was like, okay, there's these other games here. But what I didn't expect to see was the main protagonist, Ichiban, butt naked on a Hawaiian beach. And, you know, I love Yakuza 7. It's one of my favourite Yakuza games ever. But this was kind of strange to me. Like, Ichiban is butt naked on a Hawaiian beach, and these like American characters on that beach. So, not only did Yakuza 7 change the fighting change the whole combat system, where we went from beat 'em up to now turn based. Now we're moving countries, and now we're going to America.
You are about to experience the James Rambling Show, hosted by James Patton.
Hello, welcome back to the James Rambling Show for yet another episode. So as you all know, we've just came off of those history episodes where we talked about different aspects of history. You learnt something for a change. But this week, I'm going to be discussing something a bit different here. Right, so first of all, right, there was these game festivals that happened recently, and I want to talk about that, and I never got the chance to talk about it because I was just talking about history. I've also been reading this book about Bryan Cranston's life. Maybe I'll talk about my thoughts on Pride Month because I never got around to that. So there's quite a lot of things to talk about in today's episode. So for those who haven't been following the James Ramblin' Show, one of the things that I've liked talking about is the Yakuza franchise. Like a few months back, I talked about the Judgment Game and how I liked that. I did a full blown Yakuza deep dive. I did the Judgment Games review. I've talked about Ishin. I liked Ishin. I did that like a few 2, 3 months ago. Got that game for my birthday. So I've talked about that a few times. I've mentioned it here. I've just mentioned it all over the place, whether it's on this podcast or the review show. So at this summer games fest, I believe last week or so, they revealed this game called Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. And there was all these other games. There was like Starfield, Exo Primal. There was all this stuff, but there was Like a Dragon Gaiden, and I knew about this game because they did this summit last year where you had Ishin and you had Yakuza 8 and you had Gaiden, and then you had these PC ports of the Judgment games. So there's Like a Dragon Gaiden. The trailer looks good, and pretty much right. This game takes place, I'm pretty sure, a few years after Yakuza 6, and it all connects to Yakuza 7 and Yakuza 8. And if you know from my Yakuza 7 review that Kiryu comes back, and pretty much this idea in Yakuza 6, the fact that Kiryu's last ride or whatever, it's kind of just BS now. They've forgotten about that, and they want to continue. Kiryu, the voice actor, wants to continue playing the character, and the voice actor has even said that he thought this was the last time he was going to play the character. So you get that, and there's two fighting styles in the trailer from what I remember. Like they revealed the Yakuza fighting style and the agent fighting style. But then, this is the one thing that I never expected was the fact that at the Xbox showcase, I believe 4 or 5, 6, 7 a week ago, something like that, earlier this week, whatever, and whenever it was, they revealed Yakuza 8, and I was like, okay, there's these other games here. But what I didn't expect to see was the main protagonist, Ichiban, butt naked on a Hawaiian beach. And, I love Yakuza 7. It's one of my favourite Yakuza games ever. But this was kind of strange to me. Like, Ichiban is butt naked on a Hawaiian beach, and these like American characters on that beach. So not only did Yakuza 7 change the fighting change the whole combat system, where we went from beat 'em up to now turn based. Now we're moving countries, and now we're going to America. Pretty sure there's still going to be locations in Japan. So they're pretty much trying to double up the new sort of thing happening in the game. Like they went from that whole new combat style to a new location. So you get all of that, and it was a nice surprise. I liked that. But today there was this summit, the RGG summer summit or something like that. That was the title, and it was to unveil a bit more details on the whole Gaiden thing and Yakuza 8, and the title of Yakuza 8 is Yakuza Infinite Wealth, which is an interesting title because Yakuza 7 was Yakuza Like a Dragon, and the whole franchise is now turned into Like a Dragon because Ryugaga Toku in English is Like a Dragon, so they've made this new transformation. So, and also I forgot to mention this one detail is the fact that Like a Dragon Gaiden the Man Who Erased His Name, pretty long title, but that comes out I believe in November 9th, which is a lot like so we got June, July, August, September, October, November. So about six months. We've got 6 months for that. But then we've got Yakuza 8, right? And they pretty much replayed the same trailers, which kind of ruined the hype a little bit. It's okay, we've already seen this. But then they showed more gameplay, and like Kiryu, or how his name now, Joryu, he has this cigarette and kills all these enemies with an explosion of cigarette fire, right? Then you've got him with all the web slinging, and everyone heard that. People have been memeing on Twitter about how, oh, he looks like Kiryu or Joryu is Spider-Man now, but there's the agent style and the Axis style. So it's combining stuff you've seen before with a new kind of fighting style of agent. So that's cool. And we got to see some and additional characters within Yakuza like a Dragon Gaiden the Man Who Erased His Name. So we got to see some voice actors who play the characters. You got to see Kiryu's voice actor. But there was this one detail, one thing that was all throughout this showcase that I kind of noticed was kind of strange was the fact that you got the translators and you got the Japanese speakers, but there's no dubbing, there's no subtitles, they're just talking over the top of each other. In the beginning, it was quiet, but the more it went on, you could hear what they were saying, which is good. It took a while to get used to because the mixing was a bit off, but there was that. But they unveiled the characters, and you just seen that, and then we got all of that. I think one of the characters was called Nishtani the Third, and I'm pretty sure Nishtani was a villain in Yakuza Zero, so they're bringing back characters. So you have all of that stuff, but with Yakuza 8, really though, like with Yakuza 8 and Gaiden, they didn't reveal so much stuff about it. They kind of just showcased extended gameplay, and with Yakuza 8, they showed this part where Joryu and Ichiban are having this conversation about Psycho. Psycho was a playable character in Yakuza 7, and how there was like this whole relate love advice thing, and that was kind of interesting. So they're not revealing, they're not revealing tons and tons and tons and tons of things, but they're just giving you little pieces of the pie of what could be in the game. Although they did admit that Ichiban naked on the beach in Hawaii or whatever is a actual real in-game footage. So that should be interesting to when I play Yakuza 8 or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, right? I have to talk about that one thing, right? It's a strange marketing strategy there because, okay, we know this is Yakuza, but somebody who's never played any of the Yakuza games, like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, what's that? It just doesn't. It just feels a bit weird in the marketing. But it's got the infinity symbol, which if you turn the infinity symbol into that, it looks like an eight, like that, right? So you have that, but yeah, like it was just interesting to see how they managed to showcase some stuff about Joryu and Ichiban, but they didn't reveal every single detail, which was good because then we can just speculate online and I can spend 10 minutes talking about it on a podcast, right? So there's that, and they've announced that they're going to do another summit in fall, so maybe we'll do another round where I run a round of this where we talk about the summit of the fall. I'm not too sure about that though. Overall thoughts though on the RGG Summer Summit 2023. I am satisfied with it. I will be playing Like a Dragon Gaiden. I'm gonna say Like a Dragon Gaiden because Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who races name, is one of the longest titles of a Yakuza spin-off and Yakuza game in general. So I'm looking forward to see how that whole thing unveils and how Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth turns out. Because I want to see if they can top what they did in Yakuza 7 where they changed that combat. So I'm looking forward to that. And also to mention the fact that the voice actors were very big fans of the Yakuza games, and that makes sense. And the voice actor of Kiryu like ignores the fact that people are accepting that it's called Like a Dragon now and not Yakuza. So okay, we've spent like probably about 10 minutes just talking about that because there's a lot to take in. Like if you just like frame by frame, you could just analyze what was going on in that one cut scene with the Joryu and Ichiban. But I'm just gonna leave it there because this is not all we're gonna be talking about in today's episode. Because, like I said, I've been reading this book called. This is the Bryan Cranston book here, A Life in Parts by Bryan Cranston, which is pretty much just this autobiography of Bryan Cranston's life. He talks about his life, his family, and all of that stuff. He talks about all of that kind of stuff. There is mentions of his role in Breaking Bad, and we've talked about Breaking Bad before, but you know, it's just about his life. I've not read the whole book though. I don't really read autobiographies. It's not really a thing I read. You know me, I've read Lord of the Rings before, but it's not a book that I've read. So I do like that. I will read it more. It gives me something to do on that front. But also, I do actually do want to talk about how I have been watching a bit more Seinfeld, and we've talked about Seinfeld a few times on the podcast, but we haven't talked about it a lot recently. Like the last time we talked about Seinfeld was like the last time we talked to the second appearance with Tom Duncan's. So that's like a year ago or something like that, just over a year. So I've gotten up to season 8, and this is the point in the series when it's all just Jerry Seinfeld writing it now. It's not Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. So his stand-up comedy bits sort of moved from the series, but I do like that because like those stand-up bits didn't really add much. Like yeah, it was established that he was a stand-up comedian and everything like that, but it just didn't need to be there. There is ups and downs with this though because in Larry David's Seinfeld, or Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld's like collaboration together, creating the series, writing the show, whatnot. You had episodes like the Soup Nazi, which I watched last week or so, and that series, like that episode, was interesting. It's like no soup for you, and oh, right, but that's apparently one of the most controversial episodes in Seinfeld history. To to that I say like how because like Seinfeld has been littered with tons and tons and tons of offensive jokes like stereotyped Japanese people in this one episode I watched. They've stereotyped Indians. They've went after emasculating men. They've joked about pretty much any offensive thing. But what I noticed in this bit when it goes from Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld to only Jerry Seinfeld writing it is the fact that it feels a bit more PG and it feels a bit more different because he has more creative freedom and he has his own way of doing things. So that is my sort of take. I still like Seinfeld. I still like Seinfeld. It's like one of those sitcoms when there's a lot of good moments in it, and I did talk about that Breaking Bad book, but or not Breaking Bad, but the Bryan Cranston book, right? like I was saying, how it's talking about Bryan Cranston's life, what his family is like, all that stuff. But Bryan Cranston and Bob Odenkirk do actually show up in Seinfeld, and Bryan Cranston's role is like this dentist doctor sort of thing, and Bob Odenkirk, he's kind of like a different kind of character, but they aren't like significant characters. They aren't like Elaine, Kramer, Jerry, and George. They're just like appearances here and there sort of thing. So that's kind of my emphasis on Seinfeld. We've not talked about Seinfeld in quite a long time on this podcast. Not talked about Yakuza quite a long time on this podcast. So with that out of the way, I think I do want to talk about some anime as well. Again, this is something we've not talked about in a while. Like I mentioned how I liked anime a few, like in episode 15 or so. I can't remember. Right. We've done so many episodes I forget when I talk about certain things, but I've been watching this anime called Vinland Saga, which is about the Viking Age. We talked about the Viking Age a few weeks back on the James Ramlin show by the time this is coming out. Did actually record this. I'm talking this on a Friday, but back to the point, right? So I'm watching Vinland Saga. I did start it earlier this year, but I just haven't been watching it because there's so many things coming out and all that stuff. But it's a Viking series. I do like it. It's like action filled and all that. But I'm just kind of casually watching it. I'm not gonna super analyze it or whatever. But there's a new season that's came out, and that's the reason why I watched it, because there's a new season coming out and whatnot, right? And apparently that season is a bit slower than season one. Me though, I'm not too sure because I haven't watched the series yet or the season yet. So there's that. But actually, there's another show that I have been watching. So a few weeks back, I did this review on the Black Knight sort of K-drama, whatever it was. I did the Killbox soon. I've talked about K-dramas before on this podcast, but it's more so turning over to the review show that more so we're talking about reviews or reviewing K-dramas and whatnot. But I've been watching this K-drama called The Glory. I do like my revenge tales and all that stuff, but I don't know what it is. But like, I did get obsessed with K dramas, then I got burnt out, then I got back into this, and I'm just like, this, Killbox Soon was cool, and the Black Knight stuff was interesting. But this is a revenge tale, right, where this woman gets bullied and she has to get revenge on these people. We're spending 16 episodes though, and so it's a bit slow. I like the first 5 or 6 episodes, I want to say, but from there, I don't know. I don't know about it because it's just kind of right. It's just a slow series. Like I would love them just to get it done and just do the revenge. I might be wrong though because I still have episode 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 to watch, but I don't know if I'm going to do a review on it. I might give you an update on those final 4 episodes of the glory and see how I felt, but I don't know. It's just too slow for me. That's kind of all I can say on that. It's like way too slow, and it's not like it's boring either. Like it's watchable. It's just like, am I super hyped every time I turn on this episode? And it's kind of why I haven't been watching it consistently over the time I started watching it, because I've been taking 1 or 2 nights off it sometimes because it's just so bleh. And I think it's just this thing of, right, I've seen a few K dramas already, so I'm used to this format, I'm used to this formula, so of course it's not going to feel the same all of the time. However, even when I got back into K dramas, I started liking that stuff. Maybe it's just my attention span where I love high action stuff, so when I see something a bit slow burn, it's kind of meh. But I do like some slow burn stuff. It's just that sometimes when a slow burn show just takes forever to do that payoff, because I like it when slow burners have that payoff and they're building it towards something. That's cool. So there's all of that stuff. So most of this episode we've talked about like we've talked about a lot of the same stuff, except though this stuff we haven't covered in a very long time on the James Ryan show. So there's all of that stuff. But I do kind of want to end the episode on my thoughts on Pride Month. So, if you remember back, was it a few months ago or whatever, I think I did some take on Black History Month because it was February, so I wanted to give my own take on it. So, the thing with Pride Month, okay, I don't think I've ever talked about Pride Month, right? Because I'm not really LGBT and I don't want to dip my toes into that. But there's been some topics on the show we've talked about that have been kind of controversial, but sometimes I'm trying to stay away from that stuff. So the thing with Pride Month, right, it's 30 days of celebrating, LGBT stuff, and they have all these pride parades and all of that stuff. But my take on it is like, I'm not too mad at it, but it's just kind of interesting to see how there's so many of these holidays or whatever that have 30 days or 28 days or something like that. So they have this specific time period when it happens. And there's like a lot of these big corporations always put like rainbow flags on their profile pictures on Twitter and all of that. So they like to just kind of feed into the LGBT community or whatever. But I'm not like too against it, but I don't never really celebrated it. So it's it's okay compared to Pride Month. I don't hear it as much because the thing is with Pride Month, right? It's only 28 days, and so there's not a lot of time to learn about all this stuff, and it's all just kind of the same stuff. Whereas with Pride Month, people can express their gayness and all of that. Yeah. So I guess that's where I'll leave it for this episode. I wasn't expecting to record this episode a bit earlier than usual. I'm recording this at like 8 o'clock at night. 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night, and usually episodes come out at 10 p.m. on a Saturday. Now it used to be like 12 a.m. on a Saturday, but I've changed it because 12 in the morning is not very watchable, is it? Nobody's gonna wake up and watch that. So switching to that 10 p.m. stuff is like, okay, maybe someone can come home after work and watch it or something, just putting that out there. So with all of that out of the way, hope you enjoy this another edition of James Ramlin Show. Yet again, we found a way to find anything to talk about, and most of the stuff we talked about was things we've talked about before, but the things we talked about before have not been brought up since 20, 30 episodes ago, or 15 episodes ago, or whenever. So yeah, see ya. Bye. I'll see you next week for another episode. Alright, I'll shut my mouth. It's been 20 minutes. Bye.